Right, Crazy Quarantine class. This is our very last video lesson for our fiction writing unit, and it's on editing. This is the last step before you meet with me and you make any changes. Um, this is the last step in our writing process. And in this step, you're basically just going over things really carefully, making sure that all of the sentences have commas and periods or question marks, and everything starts with a capital letter, and paragraphs are indented, and yeah, your paragraphs aren't too long, and your story's not too long. Basically, this is kind of this part where you just make sure that everything looks good. That's the way I like to think about editing. Does everything look good? All right. So these are some of the things that you're going to focus on as you read your story carefully. I cannot stress that enough. Carefully going over everything, making sure that you have all of these little details. Punctuation, commas, apostrophes, quotation marks. Does a sentence begin with a capital letter? Does it end with a period or an exclamation point or a question mark? So be on the lookout for those things. This is kind of stealing from revision, but again, make sure that all of your sentences make sense. Is your sentence too long? Is your sentence too short? Does your sentence make sense? Make sure that you are looking for all those things. Are most of my words spelled correctly? Now, I'm very old, and I remember a day when you couldn't have spell check because we didn't have computers and no such thing happened. But if you see some of those things in red, underlined in red, words underlined in red, I should say, or I know Google Docs even has a little blue thing now for grammar. Take a look at those things. Now, sometimes it might be a name that Google Docs thinks is misspelled, but make sure you go over all of the red and all of the blue that you have in there, making sure that things are spelled correctly. You guys are at an advantage or maybe even a disadvantage because nothing should ever be misspelled when you turn something in. Back in my day, there were a lot of misspellings, and I couldn't type either, so I needed to have good handwriting, but I never had that either. But, anyways, so make sure all of your words are spelled correctly. And then, this is the same as the last time with revising. Are there any last things I can do to make my story better? Is there that last minute change you want to make? Maybe that story or that sentence didn't really make sense. Maybe you wanted to add something into your story to make it even better. Or maybe you wanted to move something around. So this is your last chance to read over everything before you turn it in to me and we can conference about it. So again, take your time, pretend you're someone reading your story for the very first time, and do this editing process. This is the final step before you turn it in to me. Can't wait to meet with all of you and conference about your stories. But let's make sure that we edit as our last step before you meet with me.